You are doing these 3 things daily. Your child, by the time they get ready to be in kindergarten, they'll be ready to thrive and take off with what they need to know. So number 1 is play. Number 2 is connection and conversation. And then number 3 is reading.
Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits Podcast. I'm Hillary Wilkinson. Whether you're starting your parenting journey with a newborn or looking to connect with your teen on technology, let's learn some new healthy screen habits together. I am a huge fan of whimsy, kids, and imaginative play, and my guest today ticks all those boxes. She captures it all within this framework of fun, partnered with developmental research. I first found the Quiet Book Queen on Instagram and was immediately transported back to this core memory of mine of this cloth book that was handmade for my sister and I, with buttons and zippers and laces to tie. And I loved that book. I remember feeling like such a big kid when I could complete the tasks on the page. And it's one of those things that's so deep within me. I feel like I can almost smell the pages. So Kailan Carr is the brilliance behind the Quiet Book Queen and crafts in between. Her real life approach to parenting littles and seriously adorable ideas, products, and activities are absolutely captivating. With this season's focus on tech and the littles, I wanted her to share what she finds important about real life play and also to ask if, in her opinion, screens are ever okay with littles. Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits Podcast, Kailan Carr, the Quiet Book Queen.
Thank you, Hillary. I'm so excited to be here.
Before we get too deep in the woods here, I recognize not everyone is going to remember or have had experience with quiet books. So could you share what is a quiet book and what kind of inspired you to create this space?
I loved your story because that is exactly what happened to me too. I had a quiet book as a child. It is a core memory. And then we couldn't find it. We had no idea where it went as an adult. And then I just had kids. And I knew from the beginning, before I was even having a family, that I wanted to limit screen time. And I like to say my kids were born about the same time as the iPad. It was maybe a year or two old when they were growing up in the toddler years. It was new and exciting and this really cool thing, and the kids love it. But I just didn't like their behavior after they would use it. And my mom instinct was like, I don't know about this. So I ended up putting it in a drawer, and I wanted to find other alternative activities. I definitely knew when we went out and about, I didn't want to rely on my phone to entertain them. I wanted them to learn how to entertain themselves and just be busy without the screen. And so the quiet book was my go-to. It was my gold when my kids were little. And they are a lot of work though to make. Like you said, there's a lot of pages with zippers and buttons and buckles and imaginative play, like a telephone and like build a sandwich. And I ended up starting my first swap group with a bunch of friends that I said, hey, I want to make this. I remember this as a kid, but I don't want to make the whole thing. Like, it's a lot of work. Does anyone want to join me and like make one page and then we'll swap and put our books together? And I actually had about 20 people who were like, yeah, let's do it. And so that's kind of how my first swap and my first quiet book was born.
So, knowing that you're about screen-free play, I'm just kind of like jumping right in here at you. Do you ever find that there is ever an okay time for screens with little guys?
You have to think of the big picture. Like, what is your goal and your purpose in handing over that screen? You know, is the benefit in that moment, are they going to outweigh, you know, the kind of bad things that happen when it comes to too much screen time, when it comes to behavior? And if you're always becoming reliant on using them to entertain your child, does your child know how to play on their own and entertain themselves? So that sort of things, for me personally, found that it was so much easier with toddlers and preschoolers to not have them as an option, because I didn't want to deal with that fight and that behavior. And it's actually like an investment that you have as you're raising kids. You invest in them in the early years. It is a lot more work to be screen free. Screens are the easy way, right? It's there, it's present all the time, and the kids love them. But when you look at it now, my kids are 8 and 10 years old, and I feel like that investment has paid off so much, because my kids love to read. They will entertain themselves, can find whatever they want to do during the day when they get home from school, and they can, figure out things to do. They'll talk to people and socialize out and about. And I think it definitely was a good choice for us. But every family is different, and you have to decide what works for you and how screens affect your child's behavior.
Right. I agree. Yeah. It's that intentional use rather than it just being a go-to. I like what you were saying as far as like, kind of almost training your kids for being able to be self-entertaining and being engaged with print, etc. Why do you think that like your quiet books and storyboards and these kind of open-ended playthings are so compelling to preschoolers?
Kids have the best imaginations, and they're curious. So they like to explore and tinker and play with things. And quiet books just allow that. Like there's pages after pages of just different activities that they can manipulate. And then open-ended playthings like good old-fashioned toys, boxes, like it doesn't have to be a toy, they have no end in sight. Like the toy is not telling the child what to do. The toy is allowing the child, it's a tool, and the child is able to play with it however they want. So whether that's, magnetic blocks or wooden blocks, they can build whatever they'd like, baby dolls and dinosaurs. They can take it wherever.
So, beyond a mom and a former teacher, you also hold a master's in literacy and reading. And I'm bringing the credentials out because I think when it comes to understanding things like developmental windows, it's really important to know that you are a credentialed expert in this realm. You are not just some lady who had a cute idea, So many of us get really swept up into this academic fervor of trying to make sure our kids have all the tools they need for school success and are early readers and know sight words, etc. But I'm interested to hear what you think. A lot of these tools that we think we're investing in for our kids come in the form of educational apps or talking toys, or even like these singing magnets that teach letters. There's no end to things that make noise anymore, it seems like.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I'm asking, as a reading expert, do you find that these things work?
Well, they work, but it's basic memorization skills, which is not a high level skill. And honestly, it's one of my biggest frustrations is the marketing tactics that these companies use. And they are putting the pressure on parents to get their kids reading earlier and earlier. And that if they aren't using this new app or this new game, that their child is going to be behind. And that just is not the case. And I want everyone to know that kids do not need to be reading by the time they enter kindergarten. And what they actually need is 3 things. And I'll tell you them. So if you are doing these 3 things daily, your child, by the time they get ready to be in kindergarten, they'll be ready to thrive and take off with what they need to know. So number 1 is play. Play is so important, and your kids need the time and the space to dive deeply into their play. It's not like, don't feel pressure to set up an activity for them or have a sensory bin, or I feel like parents still get that pressure even if it's screen-free time, that they need to have something to do, and it's not true. Like, just have that time and space and let your kids play. And number 2 is connection and conversation. And they learn so much just by watching and interacting with us, whether you're cooking in the kitchen or you're folding laundry, like all those things. You can be talking and practicing pre-reading concepts such as rhyming and phonemic awareness in just your daily tasks, like play rhyming games. You can clap out syllables and sounds and words, that sort of thing. And then number 3 is reading. So if you are just reading every day to your child, you are doing so much without even like realizing it. You're building their concepts of print, on how a book works and how it's, you go from left to right and how there's a cover, and that these words on the page have meaning. You're building their vocabulary, and it's the perfect amount of stimulation for their brain too. There was a study called like Goldilocks effect, where books on tape were a little underwhelming, understimulating for kids. It was a little harder for them to pay attention, whereas e-readers was on the other end of the spectrum, where if you have like a book on a screen that's interactive, that was too overstimulating. So reading a book in print is like the perfect amount of stimulation for kids. And it connects that warm, fuzzy feeling of being close to you with the activity of reading. And that is just pure magic. And that
Right.
is how you raise a reader right there.
Yeah, it's got that intrinsic motivator of just, like you said, that warm, cozy, fuzzy feeling that will drive that. I think those of us who have favorite books from childhood, we don't know why they're even a favorite book. If you were to look at it with your adult eyes, you would think, well, this is a cute story, but I'm not sure, and it may just have been that was the book that you got read to 15 times in a row.
Yep. You connected to it. Yeah.
So we have to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to dive deeper into figuring out the healthiest ways to help our littles become lifelong learners.
Hi, I'm Amy Adams from Healthy Screen Habits. I have the privilege of running Book Club. And we invite you to join us each Friday over on Instagram at Healthy Screen Habits, where we discuss books that will help us create healthy screen habits for a balanced life. We have a book that we do every couple months, and we hope you'll join us and enjoy and learn and grow with us.
Kailan Carr is passionate about screen-free activities and learning through play. She founded Quiet Book Queen and Crafts in Between to help parents and grandparents provide screen-free activities for their little ones in easy, cost-effective ways. She loves to read, road trip, and go to concerts. So now I have to ask, Kailan, what was the last concert you went to?
John Mayer. And then I went to the Bay Area and saw him again. So I'm a big fan.
Wow, nice. Okay, so let's talk about play. I think we've all heard this phrase that play is the work of childhood, but not everybody understands that. So could you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah. So real life play is literally connecting neurons and building pathways and growing your child's brain. So by age 3, a child's brain grows 80%, and by age 5, it's up to 90%. So this is the critical time period that is going to lay the foundation for the rest of your child's life. And research studies are using MRI technology and have shown that too much screen time does affect the brain. And that's why I feel so strongly about limiting screen time in the early years, because there's going to be plenty of time in a child's life to learn and use tech as a tool. But I want to preserve childhood for play, make sure they're building their fine motor skills, their imaginations, their executive functioning skills, their creativity, and all of those things that then the tech can come later once they realize, that they can do all the other things first.
Right. And with the MRIs that have been done on children's brains in particular, one of the things that I find most alarming is that they've detected a lack of, or a thinning of, white matter in the brain.
Mm-hmm.
So we have gray matter and we have white matter. Very, very abbreviated brain science, according to Hillary. The gray matter is more like content areas, and the white matter is more like roadways to the gray matter. And the white matter thins as we age. It's a natural part of the aging process. So if we are starting our children out by depleting that white matter, it's going to have lasting consequences. We just don't know what it is yet.
Yes, that is the crazy thing, that we're living in this experiment. I feel like the iPhone and iPads and devices have only really been around for 15 years, and like 15 years is such a short amount of time, and it has completely changed the way we live our lives. And
Right.
we have seen so many effects, negative effects in this time period. And there's studies now that are showing it, but we are now so entrenched in this new way of life that we're having a hard time
Right.
giving it
And
up.
it's right. And you look over the human life and you go, oh, it's been around for 15 years. Okay. Well, 15 years seems like okay. Well, I mean, that's for, if you're 30, that's like half your life. It seems like a long time. Well, when you balance that with the evolution of us as a species, where we've evolved to this point, it's actually, it's a little egocentric to think that we've figured out a better hack,
Right.
to learning or working together or connecting, as, all of the things that promote social behavior and good fellowship.
Yes.
So what makes offline or physical play different from online play? I mean, it seems like kids are having fun in both elements. What makes the two different types of play different?
Well, there is another study that shows like kids playing on a screen and manipulating blocks with like their finger versus actually playing with blocks and building the stacks. Like, there is a difference. Kids cannot transfer the information they're getting from the screen to real life. And what helps transfer that is like human interaction. So that's what they say when you're watching a show with your child, to watch it with them, and then you can take that information that they're seeing and you can connect it and talk about, maybe it's the letter E, then later on you can say, oh, there's a letter E. We learned about that today. And what sound does that letter make? And, you can continue it further on. And then, I don't know if you want to continue. I was going to talk about social emotional learning.
Sure.
Did
Yeah.
you
I was going to ask, how about emotional learning and self-regulation?
Because I think this is so important, that kids have emotions, big emotions, and we have to teach them how to deal with them. And play really helps kids sort through those feelings and work through different situations. Even when big, scary things are happening, like the pandemic, for instance, like play was a comfort to them, and that was a standard. And whereas screens are sort of numbing and you go to them to escape. And so we really have to be careful when it comes to using screens as like a pacifier for our kids, or to make them happy, to get them to calm down, because we don't want them needing a screen in order to feel better and calm down and soothe themselves. And you don't want them just bottling up their emotions and not working through them, just so that they are distracted by the screen for the moment.
I kind of feel like when we turn to screens as a quote unquote coping mechanism to deal with big emotions, it's almost like you can view the screen as like a cork, but it's like all that stuff that's putting us in that highly agitated state isn't really going anywhere. It's not dispersing. We're not really dealing with it. We're just corking it. And yeah, it's stopping the outflow of all the emotions, but it's going to come out later. And I think that also that's why you have, like, when you, for example, if you have a child who's been playing video games or something like this, and you ask them to stop, oftentimes when they come off the screen, they're completely dysregulated. They're super grouchy. They're super, you have somebody who's usually very helpful and maybe will set the table very easily, help with all the family jobs. And instead you have somebody who's throwing things, knocking over chairs, or, just very much grouchy. That's because you've just uncorked that bottle that's been, like, under pressure while we're while we're dealing with that screen. And now everything's just flying. So
Yeah,
it's
I
not,
love that analogy.
yeah. So the screen is not actually a coping mechanism. What we need to do is teach our kids how to air out that bottle.
Work through it.
Yes. So I know that you are not just busy with your business and all of the family duties you have, but you're also heavy into advocacy against tech in schools. And I would like to extend to you an opportunity to just like freestyle here. I mean, what do you wish all parents knew about tech in younger grades, or what kind of like message do you want to impart to school boards across the country? No pressure. No pressure here. Like I said, freestyle for me, Kailan.
we might need another hour here if I'm going to talk to school boards. I first I'll talk to parents and say, like, I know as a parent coming from limiting my child's screen time in the early years, it can be difficult transitioning into this new phase because you have more control in those early years. And you can choose your daycare or your preschool based on your values. And screen time was definitely one of mine. And then they hit kindergarten and there's a more rigid school system, and tech is definitely more and more involved. So sometimes you might be able to choose and continue, Montessori or Waldorf type schools, or you might choose to homeschool. That wasn't an option for me and my family. So I headed down the public school path. And I've navigated. So what I've learned, my kids are now in 3rd and 5th grade, is don't be afraid to speak up and advocate for your child. And you are not going to be able to control what the school district is mandating that their teachers do. And you can't tell them how to run their classroom, but you can ask questions and ask them, like, what programs are you using that involve a computer and how much time are they on it per day? And it will help get teachers thinking about the choices they're making. Maybe they just have not thought about the amount of time that they're putting kids on screens. And your questions are just going to be like, oh, yeah, maybe I could choose this instead of math on the computer because they've already had, reading on the computer, something like that. And for me personally, I don't have my kids do screen time during the week because I know they get enough during the day at school. Like there's programs, they're mandated minutes on certain programs. And I just right now it's a big fight, and I'm doing what I can through school board meetings, but it's a big job. So you can only control like what you can control in your home, and with the communication with your teacher is so important. And if you just establish a connection and a relationship and just talk about your concerns and say, I notice this when my child is on too much screen time. I want to make your life easier. I want, and I don't want to use it as a time filler. So I'm going to send some activities that are screen free. Like, can he or she please just read books when they're done with assignments, or write a story or help you. School should be a place for encouraging reading and writing stories and playing games with your peers instead of killing time with a computer game, even if it's educational. It's just those benefits are not there compared to human interaction and reading and writing, and like that's what school is for. And we don't need to get into this trap of better test scores. We need this computer game to get them, because I've watched my kids play these computer games, these educational games, and they spend so much time wasting around on creating their avatars, and then the learning is not really good, like perfect for them. It's way too easy, so they just like go through it, or if it's too hard, they're not understanding it and they just skip over things. It's just not valuable. It's just not.
Well, we have to take a short break, but when we come back, I'm going to ask Kailan Carr for her healthy screen habit.
At what age should I give my child a smartphone? How much screen time should I allow each day? What are the best filters to use on my family's devices? Sound familiar? These questions and more are answered at the Healthy Screen Habits website. We've curated the best articles, books, videos, and many other resources to help you figure out how you want to use technology in your life. Click on the awareness section to learn about the issues and dangers surrounding screen use. Then click on the tools page to download printables you can use with your family today, including the Healthy Screen Habits Family Technology Plan. Visit our website at www.healthyscreenhabits.org for the resources and tools you need to get started.
My guest today is royalty of a different sort. As the quiet book queen, Kailan Carr has helped hundreds of people make quiet books through her swap groups, page kits, and templates. She also has a monthly membership inner circle, Screen Free Fun, where she creates new printable screen-free activities each month so you don't have to do any of the searching or the planning. It's a new year and time for some new habits to aspire to. In each episode, I ask for a healthy screen habit. And this is a tip or takeaway that listeners can put into practice in their own home. Do you have a New Year's healthy screen habit to share with us today?
Yes, I'm always trying to be a good role model for my kids. And even then, it's so hard. I have turned off my notifications. I have my phone on silent, and it still gets to me. So my latest thing is using the downtime function on my phone so that I don't automatically go through the habit loop of checking all my apps, because I'll find I'm on Pinterest looking on a recipe, and then I'm checking my email, and then I'm on Instagram checking for messages, and then I'm on Facebook checking for messages. And it's just this loop that you get sucked into. And so that is my advice. And then phone in the other room is just the best option. That is what I prefer. But when you have to have your phone with you, it's nice to lock it down like that.
So you just turn on downtime, or how does that work?
Yeah, there's a function in your settings. I think it's in screen time, and you can set your downtime for certain time periods. So it grays out like the apps that you've selected. And so it only has access to like your text messages or, and then if you need to get in, it'll say like, let me in for 15 minutes or like finish for the day. But it just really helps the automatic like part where you go in. That is what like is so scary to me, because I know all the research and I know what's happening, and it's still affecting me, and I still fall for the endless loops and cycles that social media and like the phones like are designed to keep you on there for as long as possible, and it's working. So I'm trying to definitely be mindful.
I love it. I love it. I think we can always, I think anytime you can build in that little that little like speed bump, just give yourself a little pause of like, okay, wait a minute. Do I really want to do this?
Right. Right.
Okay. As always, a complete transcript of this episode, as well as a link to Kailan's website, quietbookqueen.com, can be found in today's show notes. You can find these by going to the healthyscreenhabits.org website, click on the podcast button, and use the drop-down menu to find this episode. Kailan, I can't thank you enough for meeting with me today. It's really fun, and it's not every day I speak with royalty.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. And if your listeners would like some free activities, if you go to my website, quietbookqueen.com, there's a pop-up and you can download like 6 different activities to use for like ages 3 to 7.
Awesome. For more information, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Healthy Screen Habits. Make sure to visit our website, healthyscreenhabits.org, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. It's free, it's fun, and you get a healthy new screen habit each week. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you giving us a quick rating. It really does help other people find us and spread the word of healthy screen habits. Or if you'd simply like to tell a friend, we'd love that too. I so appreciate you spending your time with me this week, and I look forward to learning more healthy habits together.